We're off. Most likely, probably. We're probably live now. We're doing it. And we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Only Stupid Answers, the best damn podcast you can put your ears on. If you're joining us from Patreon, thank you so much. That $5 tier gets you a lot. You get Super TV Showdown, you get bonus interviews, but also you're going to get an extra special MCU Rewatch review.
What?
Which is very exciting. And if you're catching this on YouTube, you can see us in just a second. We're pictures right now, but
oh
yeah, there you go. I was trying to lead you to it. There we are. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited because we've been doing a rewatch of all of the Phase 1 Marvel movies.
Well, we're doing a rewatch of all the Marvel movies. We just finished Phase 1.
Dear Lord, that's 6 movies.
It gets
six whole movies.
Phase 2, I believe, is also 6 movies. Phase 3 gets a little bit nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
They didn't really plan that out. They didn't really measure that correctly. They kind of just started adding more and more and more.
If they just wanted to keep making that money.
Hey, that's okay. We understand. But no, this has been a really exciting thing. Thank you to everybody who on Patreon who joined us for the watch throughs. We did it for Iron Man and Avengers.
And then thanks to the people that followed us. We were doing off our personal Twitters. We do live tweets for watching the rest of the movies, which has been really fun.
That's been cool. We've gotten to watch some movies that we have never rewatched since seeing them in theaters.
No.
At least I have. And it's been... My opinions have changed on a lot of movies.
Same.
Good and better.
Or at least the way I remember. I
worse.
don't really remember my opinions at the time, but my opinions in hindsight have changed with a couple movies. Most of them are more positive. One of them is not.
Ooh, don't spoil it though. We're very excited though because we're gonna go over our thoughts and feelings on all of them really quick. Let's kick it off with the one that started it all, Iron Man. Look at that fun image right there.
Man, this fun image is actually from the video game. Did you remember that they released a video game?
Was it good?
No.
No, good.
No,
that's a hard no. But,
although I feel like you could make I feel like Iron Man's one of those that would really lend itself to video games.
Like a Sony kind of like Spider-Man game, but you do it with Iron Man. I think it could be very cool. Like or like an Injustice game where you could like all those packs you get and you upgrade your armor. You're like, why does Superman have a chin strap on? You're like, shush. But with Iron Man, you could like really update it, like and have a lot of fun.
I have my phone out as if we're gonna scroll through. Something, but
it's just a picture of you. It's pretty good though.
It's weird. I don't know what's going on. You know what? I'll bring up information about the movie.
There you go. I did have IMDb up, but that definitely is not up anymore. So director Jon Favreau started all this. Man, I love him. I think I'd really like hanging out with him.
Is there a possibility, Sam? I'm gonna get controversial right out the gate. I'm sorry. Is it possible that this movie was too good? Was too good at what it did, that whenever Marvel ran into a character that they wanted for some reason but they didn't know how to adapt, they're like, oh, just do that again.
I mean, that's not a bad thing though.
It is not a bad thing. This is actually, there's two of the movies we're going to talk about today, actually the ones we did live streams for, Iron Man Avengers, I revisited before we did this. And it's a testament to both of those movies that when it was like, hey, we're going to do this and you're going to rewatch them just a couple months later, that I was still actually genuinely excited to rewatch them. This is a really good movie.
Oh, it's super solid, and like from start to finish. And I remember you mentioning this during when we were watching it, that they actually have time to work on his character. Like they put him off in a cave for a good chunk of the movie, where he and Jensen just get to talk, and you get to know Tony outside of like the billionaire part of him.
Yeah, and it really humanizes him, and it's interesting. This starts a trend with the Marvel movies. It's something they do really well, and I've come to think that this might be the key to a really good superhero adaptation. One of the keys is focusing on your main character, making him the most interesting and entertaining person in the movie, because it's something that not only a majority of the Marvel movies do really well, but the CW shows that we enjoy, typically the central figure, especially like Arrow and Supergirl, is the gravity that keeps everything else in orbit. And Tony, right out of the gate, he was so different than what we'd gotten from superheroes in the past. And Robert Downey Jr. just really he deserves all the money that they pay him to be in these movies, because you would not have this universe without his presence. It's magnetic. It's engaging. It's complicated.
Actually, for Avengers, there was they were going to redo the they actually shot a version of the intro that started with Iron Man, and it was going to be, and there was even a version of the script where it was from Iron Man's point of view. And they're like, no, we're gonna make this an equal share type movie,
which is smart for that.
Yeah, it's also a team movie, so it's not Iron Man and the Avengers, it's the Avengers, yeah.
Which I'm glad they focused on that, but franchise-wise, it kind of is Iron Man and the Avengers.
And the only reason they didn't do it because they did shoot an intro with Iron Man, and it's like, nah, it doesn't play very well. We want to start with like the lower tier heroes, and then kind of build out what the threat is, and then go from there. He doesn't show up for a while in the movie, actually, like. Thor's the one to show up the last.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
We're not talking
Wrong
about
movie. Sorry. Yeah, it is a fun one. That's one fresh in my brain.
Yeah, so this movie does a really good job of making Tony charismatic, setting up his flaws, which are flaws that the poor man is still struggling with this 18 movies deep.
No growth.
Yes, growth, but he's still struggling.
Yeah.
He's still... and I think it's a testament. People like to emphasize the comedic nature of his performance and the comedy in this movie, because it was different than what we'd gotten before. But there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of like Robert Downey Jr. does a really good job of like selling like the deeper sadness.
Oh yeah,
inside his character.
And it's more of an ensemble movie. It's
Gwyneth Paltrow is really good in both this and Iron Man 2, and I don't remember thinking about her ever when I first watched these movies.
No, she's kind of. I mean, for most of the supporting cast actually, but I'm bummed that Don Cheadle wasn't in the first movie because I wish I had more time with his version of Rhodey.
Yeah.
But Terrence Howard's Rhodey in that movie is really good.
It's kind of like this one catch-22. I wouldn't mind to see Terrence Howard's version grow if he'd stuck around, or vice versa. And I think I prefer this one. I wish Don Cheadle had been in this one.
Yeah.
So you get, but Terrence Howard is really good in this movie. I think you noted this when we watched it. It's surprising. Jon Favreau has a cameo as Happy Hogan, Tony's driver. And for some reason, we were both under the impression that he's in the movie more, and he's not really.
No, not really. It's very, very small. And I do really like what they do with Jeff Bridges' character. I like his more rapport with Tony. And
yeah, it's hard. Jeff Bridges is great.
Yeah,
always.
So you can't really go wrong. And also the plan was for him to not. Oh, by the way, we're doing spoilers in these movies.
Yeah,
if you stumble upon this.
What a decade-old movies. Yeah.
With this one, yeah.
This one, yeah.
But Jeff Bridges thought he was going to survive the end of the movie. He thought he was just going to be like, basically he makes a big Iron Man suit.
Yeah, Ironmonger.
Yeah, he gets electrocuted, falls in the arc
reactor. Tony, we're Ironmongers.
There you go. Yeah, see, you got your line, and everyone's happy. And then but he thought, he read the script, and he was like, well, he could still survive. He could have like left and run away or something.
Yeah, he definitely gets a Disney movie death where it's like, I guess he's dead.
I guess he's dead. Yeah. It's very ambiguous what happens exactly, but whatever. I'm fine with him not coming back.
The only thing. This movie is basically perfect through him making the classic armor that we know and love, and
in the cave. Right?
Yeah, and no. When the cave armor is great. By the way, we talked about this in the review. One of my favorite habits. When you watch this movie, there's a lot of Marvel habits that they never quite grow out of, and for the most part, that's not great. Like some of the way they treat women and some of the way they treat people of color and stuff like that.
They get better.
They still have some of their bad habits. One of the habits that they start in this movie that I'm glad that they've kept is starting off the character in a more because in the comics the costumes usually start from point A and become the classic costume we're used to. Mm-hmm. And the fact that these movies embrace that transition. So Tony starts with his junky ass
giant enormous costume
armor, and then it eventually evolves into the classic armor, and most of these heroes get that, and I as a fanboy I love it, I eat it up. But no, through when he creates the red and gold armor and saves the village, it's basically a perfect movie. Yeah. The only part where it starts to lose me a little bit is Jeff Bridges goes from grumpy to straight up supervillain in 0 to 60. Like he just it's like reading the backstory. They were working on the script as they were filming, and Jon Favreau relied a lot on improv, which creates a lot of great energy. But I feel like that it's harder in that style to nail the ending, and I feel that in the ending here. It feels like, well, I guess the movie needs an end now, so he's paralyzing people with his magic button, and
it's just a button. Yeah.
And suddenly he was the one that wanted to kill Tony, even though he only really had a reason to want to. Now that Tony's like ruining their business, trying to make get out of the weapons industry, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just feels kind of sudden and forced a little bit. Final fight's cool though.
It is very cool. I was more okay with the ending. I bought the motivation from Jeff Bridges, but it does happen very fast. And for over half the movie, Jeff Bridges is a fine character. Like, he's a good person. Like,
he appears, and there's a little hint of menace.
He's just a businessman.
Yeah.
But, like, for the most part, the movie does flow and it does work, and there's a lot to love about it. The CG holds up surprisingly well for a lot that happens in that movie, and the comedy in it doesn't reach Avengers 2 levels of quippiness. And actually, there's not too many. It's his fast talking personality. That's what you're mainly getting.
I think it reminds me a little bit of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, where they did something that worked. And so they're like, oh, we're going to do more of it. And part of what made it work was a little bit of the restraint. When we talk about Iron Man 2, there's at least one scene where it's like quippiness cranked up to 11. It's like, no, maybe we'll dial it back to Iron Man 1 levels, because it's hard to follow what's happening right now.
Oh, no, there's one scene in Iron Man 2 where it's just Gwyneth Paltrow and Tony talking, and just like,
what's going on?
Yeah, I can't follow. Yeah. We'll get to that soon. But overall, like, this obviously makes sense why this movie launched everything.
Yeah.
The following movies are question mark. Even though we enjoy them now, you brought this up when we were just at lunch, that like some like movies like those, if they came out now, because of like the saturation of superhero movies.
I'll bring that up on Thor. I feel like Thor is a good one to bring up. And honestly,
they would be torn apart.
Yeah. I remember they released a Punisher arcade side-scrolling beat-em-up game, and one of the other, you could play Punisher or you could play Nick Fury. Interestingly, and going back to that time and the idea of introducing S.H.I.E.L.D., the concept of S.H.I.E.L.D., because S.H.I.E.L.D. is it's a very uniquely Marvel concept. Introducing that in Iron Man, having Coulson, which we'll get into this more, but God bless Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, because he's fantastic.
By the way,
in all of them.
To come back to Avengers for just a second, there's a joke in the movie where he says, Phil, he's like, his name is Agent. Yeah. Because in the original script for Iron Man, they never gave him a name. He was just S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Yeah. And then because they loved his improv, they were like, no, he's got to be a person.
Great human grounding presence with all the craziness. But the idea of introducing S.H.I.E.L.D. and then having the balls, because that was the first time that I don't think there's ever been as shocking an after credits scene as casting Samuel L. Jackson to be Nick Fury.
It was so weird.
Yeah, and, it's great. It's such a great. It makes sense for Iron Man, like to fit the S.H.I.E.L.D. with Iron Man, and the way they did it just works.
And it's fun because it was the first of many times Marvel movies have had post credit scenes where everyone goes, oh, and then they're like, what is so exciting? And they're like, who is that? We don't know. Like, normal people are like, no, we have no idea who that is.
90% of the population's like, I guess this is cool.
But it's Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, and it's fun. Like, same thing with Avengers. It's just like, I don't know. Yeah. Sorry if you're not listeners. I was shrugging my shoulders. Like,
I could hear the shrug. Maybe I heard the shrug.
Let me see. Hold on. Maybe you heard that.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. We'll boost it. We'll boost everything. This is basically just breaking your speakers right now. But if we're going to rate it out of the 18 movies that are out there right now for the MCU, where would you rate Iron Man 1?
Probably out of 18, probably like a 17. I'd say it's A, solid A.
I give it a solid A as well. I give it a 17 as well.
Yeah, it's really good.
It deserves its praise. But let's move on to the next one. Yes. The one that the hated stepchild to Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton. I'll just say it now. This movie gets way too much hate. Yeah, way.
Especially when you think of Ang Lee's Hulk.
That movie, I know that he had all these big ideas, and he's like, "What if we made it look like a comic book?" I tried to watch it, I'm like, I'm supposed to be looking at like 8 things.
I don't remember hating it when I saw it in theaters, but I remember thinking this was a much better direction to take a Hulk movie. Speaking of seeing, imagining how things could have been different, it's like it really made me want to see a Mark Ruffalo Hulk movie.
Yeah, same thing, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Edward Norton's good in it, but the idea, it reminded me a lot of the classic Hulk series, probably because they trot out the theme, which is great, and they have a couple Bill Bixby references.
And also, because I was doing a breakdown for this for New Rockstars, but the Incredible Hulk, like, Edward Norton is a huge Hulk fan. Of course, every actor has to say that about the thing they're adapting. But he actually sat down and rewrote the script a couple times. Yeah. And he threw in more references to other characters. And he did cut, there was one, I think Rick Jones played a pretty big role, but he's like, there's too many other people to play around with. I think Doc Samson could have been changed.
Yeah, like
to Rick Jones.
Like what weird cast? It's the Modern Family dad. And it's like, were you ever planning on doing the classic Doc? I could never see that actor.
And what a weird character out of anybody to bring. I mean, just
I love Doc Samson. Just that actor,
but it's like. Why though? Like it also that story was kind of a
Yep.
It was a nothing thing.
You know what's interesting about this movie? What I was saying was they bring on the kind of man on the run aspect of the classic Hulk show, and Mark Ruffalo I think would murder that narrative. He'd be so good in it.
Yeah.
And it just made me want a Mark Ruffalo Hulk movie. But what surprised me is how much Liv Tyler is straight up the MVP of this movie.
She's
so good.
Mm-hmm. And also just. It's always confusing for me because Liv Tyler and Jennifer Connelly are the same person in my brain, and I'm just like, because they've also played sisters before and things. I'm just like,
really?
Oh yeah, they played sisters before in at least one movie, possibly two, or family members. And it's just like, that's not fair. You can't cast them in the same role. Like that's so confusing for me. They should have thought about me while making this. And also, it's an action movie. It's
Little
not
13-year-old. How old were you when this movie came out? 10 years ago. 14, yeah. Little baby Sam.
Yeah, but I wanted to say that the action movie aspect of this, where it's like a blockbuster, it works more with Hulk. Like if you want to, you had the Man on the Run, and then Ang Lee was like, what if we had like a bigger like think piece on it, on like the Cold War or nukes or whatever. It's like
his dad, his abusive dad, which was hard. It was challenging, emotional,
and it's like, but also I'm like, what am I supposed to learn from this? You know, because he's straight up evil. Like he's not like abusive, but it's like him taking out things on other people.
Him with like Absorbing Man and Zax and like this.
It's weird.
It's a strange. I would love to see Hulk versus Absorbing Man. Anyway,
yeah.
Neither here nor there.
No.
This movie is fun. There's some clunky aspects of it. I would not personally cast Tim Roth as the Abomination.
But he did a pretty good job.
When he starts leaping around and stuff, I love the stages he goes through. Like Iron Man got the stages in his movie. It's actually Abomination that gets stages in this movie, where you have straight up normal soldier versus Hulk. No good. By the way, first Hulk reveal scene's really rad when he's like taking out people in the dark. Mm-hmm. Then you get Super Soldier Abomination that is leaping around, which was a cool visual. And then you get full-on gross-ass bones popping out of his body Abomination.
I wish Cap actually came up before this, and then you got to see them attempting to recreate the Super Soldier serum modern day. Because now thinking about it, it means more why like it doesn't. You don't do it right, it goes really, really wrong.
Yeah.
That doesn't actually mean too much when you watch The Incredible Hulk, because you're like, oh, okay, that's just kind of interesting. But when you think about it now, it's like they tried gamma radiation, made the Hulk. Yeah. They tried just the serum, and then mixed it with like the gamma stuff, and that made Abomination. So it's just like a double mix of like bad stuff. And like, that makes me wish it kind of came out after. Mark Ruffalo would have been a really interesting choice for it. Boy, oh boy, did they want to make a roller coaster off of this movie, because
especially the last action sequence.
The whole thing is like Tim Roth isn't speaking like Tim Roth anymore. He's speaking like a villain leading you through a roller coaster, and it's like, it's cool. Like the fighting is really cool. And you also, I'm going to point this out in most movies because it started in Hulk and it happened basically in every movie after that up to Avengers. I don't know about Iron Man 3, which is the next one we're going to watch, but of somebody shooting a Gatling gun towards a populated area, and it's when they're trying to take down Abomination.
And they're like, there's people living in that building, but fuck them.
Yeah, they're like, take down one of the whatever, and they're like, which one, sir? It's like, not the green one, and he just unloads.
That was also,
and you could see people in the building.
Yeah, that was also a weird thing for me. That line, he's like, well, not the green one. It's like they're both. Is Abomination not supposed to be green?
Not
he's
the one like with the spikes and the bones popping out.
Yeah, he's kind of like a yellow puke color. It's kind of green. I'm not crazy, right? Abomination's kind of green in that movie.
I think they tried to like change it a little bit. But one cool like thing that I like the director added, and I like the heartbeat monitor. I do like that aspect of Bruce Banner in this. But they were gonna add his ears, like his weird fucking ears from Abomination in the comics. Like he's got like elf ears. But he's
more like thin ears is the way I would describe them. Like,
I've seen that too.
Amphibian-like ears.
But they were gonna make him just like Green Goblin kind of like thing. And then he's like, well, if anything like shot out that far from a face, he's like, Hulk's like a crazy like only is it id? Is it id? So it's just instinct or whatever. He would have bitten those off. Like he would have like done something like that. And he's like, that's too violent. Because I'm just like, if a creature was acting like that, or he would grab it and rip it off. He'd like do something.
Yeah, you know what was funny watching this is they do the bit, and it's from the comics where Bruce Banner drops himself out of a plane, which doesn't play quite as well as it did. I remember when I was young watching, I was like, that's rad.
It's not as great in this.
But it's funny that they do the exact same joke, because he's like, I'm going to jump out and become Hulk, and then he pancakes, and then he becomes Hulk. Because the way I remember it being is he becomes Hulk on the way down. And so I remember, in my mind, Thor Ragnarok was riffing on that, or what if he pancaked? And it's like, no, it's literally the same joke. It's the exact same joke.
I think Thor's, the comedy of it works better, because in this, it is supposed to be kind of funny.
Yeah.
But also, it totally derails the entire plot of what the movie is, because the plot is him getting in contact with name of the actor, the leader.
Hold on, I'll bring it up.
Oh wait, I have.
Samuel Stearns is the character.
Tim Blake Nelson.
Yeah, this poor guy, man. He's supposed to be Mole Man and Fan Four Stick.
Yeah, thank God that didn't happen. But like him choosing to become the Hulk and getting like that serum stuff, that was the whole plot of the movie, and then he becomes the Hulk again at the end.
Yeah, they rushed through that bit.
That means nothing happened.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a lot of these movies.
Yeah, but that just means that the plot didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure that
I mean,
that's why maybe this movie also doesn't
it's him
hold
supposed
up.
It's supposed to be kind of him accepting his inner Hulk.
Yeah.
You know,
which is the last shot kind of does that.
Speaking of something along those lines, the longer these Marvel movies have gone on, the more they kind of emphasize kind of like the jokey, breezy, we're just kind of having fun here tone.
Yeah.
Which has been very successful with them. It bums me out that we don't get more scenes like when Hulk saves Betty from, well, doesn't save her. He takes her from the college. There's the big college action sequence. He takes her and they're in the woods and it's raining and he hears thunder and he throws a boulder. Which, by the way, I hope there were no campers out there because they're fucked.
You can watch it fall in the background. It's like, oh damn.
Yeah.
Definitely hit like a freeway or something.
Yeah. He throws a boulder at the thunder and Betty calms him down and it's a really emotionally resonant scene it bums me out that Marvel doesn't have the confidence to do more of that. Mm-hmm. It's cool.
Oh, like the heartfelt.
Yeah, the really heartfelt, emotional sincerity. Like that's something that a lot of Marvel movies don't have. Is that like emotional sincerity?
They do. Well, to be fair, in Civil War, you get some very emotionally like highly charged. They're not subdued.
Then you're right. Then maybe go with the term heartfelt.
Yeah, heartfelt.
Heartfelt. Like because I was really surprised at how like heartfelt that sequence was, and the Incredible Hulk's not going to be on anybody's list of favorite MCU movies, but I wish they would do more stuff like that because it was cool. It was cool to see them because they hadn't quite figured out what their formula was yet, and so this was them figuring it out.
I wish they didn't bring up the sex part because it's like, oh, he can't have sex in his entire life because he'll Hulk out and kill the person.
Maybe as being a long-term Superman fan, whenever they're like, oh, because he has these superpowers, they can't have sex. It's like, no, that's so lame.
It's so weird. It's
so lame. Too. They tried to pull it with Flash too, and it's like, no, just let him be able to have sex, man. Yeah. Like, come on.
And Flash was just like, don't get too excited
because it goes quick. But you know what I mean? It's the same idea of like, just let him be able to have. Because especially once you start pulling that thread, they tried to do that on Smallville, where like Chloe's like, well, but you can shake hands without crushing somebody's hand. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
if you get excited, all of a sudden, Hancock had a whole joke in there that got deleted from the movie, and like. He finishes and it blows a hole in the roof. It's like funny, but you almost murdered that girl.
It's just let him be able to have sex, man. Come on.
On that note, out of 18. Oh, wait, did you want to bring
one last thing? Yeah. The most harrowing sequence in that whole movie is when they're in the taxi cab.
Oh, when they're driving down the road really
when they go to New York and he's like, oh, a subway, it's a pressurized tube, and I'll be stressed out. And then you see the taxi cab. And I almost hit this one guy when they're driving. It's the only scene that made me like actively feel stressed out.
It's a good scene.
Yeah.
There's good moments in it, and Robert Downey Jr. does a tease, and that's why it's confusing when he like seems confused by Hulk in Avengers because he is aware of it.
By the way, I also think William Hurt and Jeff Bridges are basically playing the same character in both these movies. They literally could have switched roles and it would have been exactly the same.
And it's kind of weird that this picks up after Ang Lee Hulk a little bit because at the end of that movie he runs off to Brazil, and then this movie takes place
in Brazil.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's funny that in a lot of ways the Ang Lee Hulk is kind of canon in MCU.
It's so weird. It's such a weird. I don't think it is, but also so is the TV show.
Yeah,
it's confusing, but literally it doesn't even matter. Yeah. Don't matter at all. No one cares because they've never come back to it in any way. Like Abomination almost came back, but they're like, no, we're not gonna do that.
We'll talk about this too. Like Abomination's one of the ones that sticks around, and he was and again, was he a fantastic villain in this movie? No, but I feel like you could build off of him
and bring him back. He'd be fun. Yeah, Infinity War. No, there's too many people already. You can't. I don't.
No.
But out of 18.
18. What would be like
We'll give a letter grade. I'd give it like a C+.
Yeah, same.
C+.
C plus, B minus, probably C plus.
But okay, so that makes it sound like middle of the road. It's like, no, it's a 70 something for me. Like it's in that realm of like, I enjoyed it enough.
Yeah,
and
I don't. C plus is pretty good.
Yeah, and so I'd give it a 18.
What is that, a 15?
Like a 13?
13?
Yeah.
13
out of 18.
How's math work, Sam?
They'll definitely correct this. I know one nice lady on Reddit did a whole breakdown thread in a Google Doc for us, and that was very nice of her. But let's talk about one of the least liked movies in the MCU, Iron Man 2.
Which is shocking.
Because it's just fine. In my opinion,
honestly,
it's just fine. No, it just doesn't deserve that hate. It's just fine.
Yeah, for me, going back and watching it, I don't remember enjoying this movie, and I think it's because a lot of the hype of the first Iron Man. I actually really enjoyed this movie. Like I was for a good like almost 2/3 of the movie, I was actually liking it more than Iron Man 1 because Ivan, what's Mickey Rourke's character's name?
Ivan
Vanko, like him and Sam Rockwell made really good antagonists. Like conceptually, I think they were really good. I liked Mickey Rourke's performance. He's coming off the wrestler from this, so it was kind of like a reverse. He was kind of a more like rough and tumble redemption story that Robert Downey Jr. got from Iron Man, so it made sense. The Iron Man's Tony's struggle with the fact that now the thing that was saving his life is still being Iron Man is killing him.
With digital viruses that are going through his veins.
Which I don't know how that works, but whatever.
They're like, no, it's radiation, but it made squares. Squares in his body.
The racetrack action sequence with I might just like the suitcase armor because it reminds me of the Silver Centurion armor, and that's my favorite Iron Man armor.
It's also the coolest like deployment of a suit ever. Yeah, because it makes it feel like it's like a bear trap or something. You know, it's something like you gotta like pull it and like make it work for you, and I think that's very cool.
That whole action sequence works. Introduction of War Machine. The part where I realized like, oh, this is why people don't remember this movie fondly is Nick Fury shows up, and that scene's fine, but he basically puts Tony on house arrest, and the movie stops. Like, the movie just grinds to a complete halt and stops doing whatever it was doing, and while Tony, like, dicks around in his garage until he magically finds out, like...
a new element.
His dad hid the component for the element in the design of the fair? Like, what the fuck is happening?
No, and, like, it's like, why didn't he just write it down? Like, a notebook, and just give it to Tony later? Like, it doesn't make any sense why he would ever need to do that. It was fun seeing... Who's that actor who plays Howard Stark in those movies?
John Slattery.
Yeah, he's good in that. Like, it was good to see him. He's got a very Walt Disney vibe.
I love that.
And the Stark Expo was a cool idea.
Combining, like, Disneyland with the New York World's Fair. Like, that's really cool. This is the first time we get to see John Cheadle, and he immediately makes a really strong impression. The first time we get Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, and immediately it's like, how did they not immediately greenlight a movie for her? Because
she's badass.
She's badass. She's very charismatic. She's beautiful. Like, I look at that and I just see dollar signs. Like, you'd make all the money. Like, what are you waiting on?
This was another one of those movies where they're like, we're kind of going to figure it out as we shoot it, because with Justin Hammer, they really didn't know what they were going to do with him.
No.
And it's kind of clear in the movie a little bit. But he ends up being a very fun character to have on screen, because I just love how slimy and how much of a leech he is. Like, and also, if you look at his hands, like, if you look at... I remember I was tweeting about it. I did a live tweet for this one, and Lon Harris tweeted about, like, he's like, I hate Marvel's weird and like focus in that movie on Ivan Vanko's fingernails, because there's a lot of shots of him like
and also
things, and it's so
Mickey
gross.
Rourke
that's what I mean. No, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
a little puffy finger, that disease, whatever.
Yeah, it's weird. But also with Justin Hammer, he's got spray rub-on tan, and you can see that it doesn't work on his hands. And I think one, they did that because they wanted him to have like that fake glow.
Yeah.
But also that's such a great like touch of like he didn't even finish rubbing on the rest of that stuff. It's so. It makes me cringe for him, and I love that. Or like, but you were talking about earlier, one of the problems with Iron Man 2 is like this fast talking thing happens twice. One in the garage when like he's playing with all the holograms, and you're like, how the fuck does that all work?
Yeah.
Really cool, but how does it work? And him and Pepper are just talking over each other, and they're not having like a real conversation. And then at the track,
right before the race,
him and Justin and Christine whatever,
which by the
reporter.
way, I think Sam Rockwell's with that actress.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
During the time or now?
No, now. I think they're a couple, which good for both of them.
And Pepper Potts. They're like, all four are talking over each other and just
it's like,
oh, stop talking.
It's one of those like walk and talk where they're tracking with them, and it's like, I literally have no idea what anybody's saying.
Yeah, I can't follow this. Elon Musk is in it. Give a little shout out to Muskie. Yeah,
that's a weird that's a weird moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but right before then you get the racetrack scene, which is logistically, when you think about it, it's like, how the fuck is Ivan able to time his whip slashes to take down these Formula One race cars and then not able to get Tony in the fight? Like, but it's an amazing sequence, and then we get that, and it's funny also how little Iron Man actually factors into this movie.
Yeah,
he's there. He's in that fight sequence. He and Rhodey have the fight, which is great when they have the fight in his house.
Yeah,
and then he's there for the final action sequence, which, by the way, is super phoned in. The last action sequence is not great, in my opinion.
No,
the idea is cool. The hammeroids, the drones, and I
hate
love
that sound. I hate that. I hate that.
I know, but I loved Ivan when Ivan just keeps changing things on Justin Hammer. He's like, drones. We're making them drones.
Yeah, he's like, but he like rips it out. He's like, no, drones.
Drones.
Like, oh, he rips out the helmet.
Yeah,
and like, and he's like, well, I wanted suits, and he's like, no.
And
bird.
One of my favorite villain moments in any Marvel movie is they have him under house arrest. The guards show up, and then they cut back, and the guards are just hanging behind him. I'm like, good lord, this guy is not somebody to fuck around with.
Mickey Rourke did a lot of prep for this movie, and he very adamantly said he doesn't want to work with Marvel again. He loved working with Justin Trudeau. No, that's the Prime Minister of Canada. Thoreau, Justin
the
Thoreau,
writer,
who did Tropic Thunder. You know him from Leftovers. He wrote Tropic Thunder, and he wrote Iron Man 2 because Robert Downey Jr. brought him over from Tropic Thunder, which is so weird because when you see like that image, the Iron Man and his character in Tropic Thunder never connect in my brain. That's such a great movie. But Mickey Rourke sat down and really worked hard with Justin Theroux, Jon Favreau, and Robert Downey Jr. to really make his character flourish. Yeah. And then Marvel cut all that out. Like, and he just became a revenge villain. Like, he went to like a actual Russian prison, and like his tattoos that he had on his body, like these fake ones, are based on different gangs and stuff from
the Bratva and everything.
Which is awesome. Like, which is a really interesting choice. But and I just wish someone told him, it's like, hey, just remember, it's a superhero movie. You gotta calm down. You're not. This isn't like no one's like freaking out about Whiplash coming. It's not like Joker.
Although, to be fair, this is one of those. This
is
one of those that I wish. Grant, you just said he didn't like working with Marvel, so he wouldn't come back. But he's a really good villain, and I would definitely like if they were to make. I think the Masters of Evil are the Avengers. The evil Avengers version. They're the Injustice Society to the Avengers. It's like he'd make a really great addition to, like, if you had Abomination, you had Whiplash. Like, he's a villain that has a tremendous amount of potential, and it's a shame that he gets that stupid suicide bomb. But it's like, I wish he stuck around, because I think you could have, maybe all that work that he put in could have paid off down the line.
Yeah. Another time when a Gatling gun almost does go off towards a public building is one. It almost goes off when all the drones and War Machine like get taken over and they are about to fire on Tony, but he flies up, so they goes off up into the ceiling. But when they're flying down, by the way, also
following Tony's the one leading them there
down, and they're aiming
toward a building.
And they're just shooting down wildly. But also in the beginning when he jumps out of the plane and he rockets towards the ground, and I'm like, wait. Why is he rocketing? Like, he's going at a very... He's not going terminal velocity for a human. He's going way faster because of the weight of him. Like, he's going extremely fast. Yeah. So...
Also, a weird scene, because they're trying to make it look like he's going into a battle, because he almost gets hit by what are fireworks. Yeah. But it's obvious they're fireworks, and it's like, what's happening? Right? Is this poor planning? What's going on?
The intro for the movie that got cut is also way more confusing. I'm glad they simplified it. It's him vomiting on the plane. That he's about to be deployed from. It's that scene where Pepper like kisses the helmet and throws it out the plane, and he goes after it. Yeah. But in the beginning, it's like he's like, "No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to jump. We're not jumping. We're gonna cancel the jump." And it's like, and then
Tony says that?
Yeah, he does.
The guy that flies around in a metal bucket.
Yeah, he's like, "I don't want to do the jump." And it's like either he's nervous about the jump, he's having like a come down, like like a hangover, or he's still drunk. And then it cut to him being fine and Pepper throwing the helmet out the thing, and it's like, wow, this is super confusing. I feel like something didn't make sense.
One thing I wish we did do in this movie is we talk a lot about how basically Iron Man's created world peace. I would have
in 6 months.
Yeah, I would have loved a sequence like when he saves the village early on in the movie to kind of establish within this movie what he's doing to create that situation. Mm-hmm. Especially since we don't get a lot of like him as Iron Man in the movie. Yeah. And again, just fucking throw away the house arrest sequence. Like just figure out something else. I mean, you get the nice nod to Cap's shield
and all the notes for Antarctica and stuff. Yeah.
Sure, fine,
the
whatever.
Tesseract.
And you get Coulson, you get Clark Gregg in there in those scenes,
and
but like
Thor nods.
Yeah, but like
it's not important.
Yeah, it just doesn't add a lot to the movie. But overall, I actually enjoy this movie a lot better than I remember enjoying it.
Same, and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit more than Hulk. I think I
agree.
I think I had more fun watching this just because I think it is a more fun movie to watch. So out of 18, I give it a like a 14, 15.
I give it like a B.
Yeah, a solid B.
Yeah, solid B.
Yeah, I think it doesn't deserve the hate that it got.
No.
But War Machine's cool. I like how it got updated, and there is a kind of a fun joke when he launches that missile at him and it doesn't work because like hammer products don't work.
But that's another.
It's not a great joke.
I don't think that joke makes up for the scene that sets it up where he's like showing all the weapons. Like, do we need? It's right during that house arrest sequence that it's like, what's happening in this movie? This movie had great momentum, and now it's just like, where are we going right now?
It does kind of feel like an in-between movie, though. It doesn't. It doesn't sit by itself. It definitely can't. Like, it can't sit by itself. It has to keep moving everything forward. And I get why Jon Favreau was like, no, I'm done directing these. Like, there's too much stuff to shoehorn in here.
Which it all worked out. It all worked out. Yeah, he's still making that. He's credited as producer on all the Avengers movie. He's doing fine.
And he gets to be happy, so he gets like his full acting rate.
Yeah.
In Spider-Man: Homecoming, he had a bigger role than Robert Downey Jr. because he's cheaper.
Yeah. Yep.
But cool, let's talk about the next installment, which is DJ's favorite. That'd be Thor. Thank goodness. I'm excited to talk about this one because we had a pitch, or we talked about it after we watched it, of like how actually the movie could have opened and been way more interesting.
The opening is actually the actual literal opening of the movie.
Which is Natalie Portman, Selvig, and Kat Dennings' character.
Yeah.
Finding Thor out in the desert.
Yeah, they see the thing fall. They're tracking something. They see him. They roll up. By the way, first mistake they made is when they run into Thor, who's dazed. He has his shirt on. Mistake. Should be shirtless right off the bat.
I mean, we know what you're selling here, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when I was watching it, I was the one that live tweeted this one. I was like, oh, cool. For some reason, I remember this opening with like a low rent Lord of the Rings thing. I'm glad they're opening here.
And then
boom, and then the low rent Lord of the Rings happens. Like, oh, fuck this movie. No, I wasn't there yet. I was like, this is fine.
Asgard is the most beautiful it's ever been, and it's like
weirdly,
and it's regal in this movie, whereas in the other ones it's kind of like throwaway.
Yeah, I don't. So yeah, man, this movie suffers from what a lot of big genre movies suffer from now. It has like 15. It has that opening, and then we cut to big battle on Earth, which is I guess why we worship them as gods. Then we cut to Kid Thor and Loki for some reason, and then we cut to young Thor
or modern
Thor getting being king. It's like, good God, we could. I think this movie should have been influenced more by the Ultimates version of Thor, where for the longest time everybody thinks he's full of shit.
But he also can do stuff.
He can do stuff. Yeah. Don't they think he's a mutant?
They think he's a mutant because his intro is he's claiming he's Thor in the Ultimates, and then like he knows a lot about Banner. He knows a lot about like his personal life, and he's like, well, he could have gotten that from the internet. He's like, no. He's like, I know this, and then immediately he makes it start raining and lightning coming.
So have him show up, have him have abilities. It's a little harder because they couldn't reference mutants, so it's a little weird that like, why does this guy just have powers?
Yeah.
But build to the moment where you get that reveal, like, oh shit, everything he said. Like you could even have flashes as he's telling people about a story. That's where you can introduce the Warriors 3 and Loki and all this stuff about his theoretically imagined life, and maybe one of the orderlies that's working with him is Loki, and he's like, no, that's Loki, and he's like, well, no, that's just an orderly that you don't like. And then you have, so that way when you have the moment where he pulls the hammer and the lightning comes down, you're like, oh fuck, it's Thor. Whereas in the movie I'm like, can we just get going with this shit? Like,
yeah, no, it would have been really cool. Like the Frost Giant stuff you could probably all cut all together and just have Loki trying to take over.
It's weird to me that Lord of the Rings is a TV show and it makes ice people look way cooler than this big budget blockbuster movie. Every time they do anything on Asgard, it's just tedious, except when Tom Hiddleston shows up. And he doesn't even get a lot to do in this movie.
But he's great.
Yeah, he's immediately electric.
And, okay, so no Gatling gun in this, but in the first fight,
yes.
In the first fight, there's a, they're fighting on the Frost Giant world or whatever, and Thor does this big hammer smash on the ground, and it just starts leveling continents. Like, like just giant shelves of land or ice are just falling, and you're just seeing thousands of Frost Giants dying. And
somebody's moving upstairs, I guess.
I think someone was just scooting a chair around in a circle for a while. That lasted so long. Anyways, but you're just seeing thousands of frost giants just slipping into the abyss and dying, and you're like, this isn't cool.
Yeah.
Thor, this is like not cool
that's all
at
else
all.
he has to learn. He just has to murder a bunch of people to figure it out.
You can't genocide.
Yeah.
Without reason. That's the thing.
Man, Chris Hemsworth it was good casting for this role. I don't think anybody else could really sell this version of Thor. Mm-hmm. And seeing him evolve with the role has been cool. You can see why they've worked so hard to make Hiddleston a little less here than in Avengers. Avengers where it really clicks, but he's electric. And there's a scene where there's a couple scenes. One where Odin is getting ready to banish Thor, and Loki tries to say something, and it just looks at him and like growls
loud.
Yeah, like and it's like, whoa.
The editing of this movie also is a little rough sometimes.
Oh yeah, and also, but there's a scene where Loki confronts Odin about his parentage, and Tom Hiddleston, Anthony Hopkins is getting a paycheck. And he's doing his Anthony Hopkins thing, which is better than most actors. But Tom Hiddleston is really selling, like, you believe it. In that moment, it's so emotional for him. And if you guys haven't seen Only Lovers Left Alive, it's Jim Jarmusch films with Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton. They're amazing. Tom Hiddleston's an amazing actor. He does amazing stuff with this role, which it's a garbage role in the movie. He's what makes it work. Natalie Portman, I think, is underused. I'm bummed that she didn't. I guess she gets more in Thor 2. We'll get there soon. But
she was supposed to be in Avengers, but she had a baby.
Good for her, man. Yeah. That's more important than whatever the fuck she was be doing in Avengers. But I really like her as an actress. I wish, I don't know,
it's more interesting or anything. Like
like Thor's there for a day and he's immediately in love with her, and suddenly like to the point where in Avengers he's like, you threaten the world I love. It's like, dude, you were there for like a day. Calm down.
You're not its protector. You didn't
blew up a city.
You didn't protect one town. Yeah. That's what you did. That was actually, it would be really interesting if it showed up like they're monitoring like anomalies, like on Earth. Like if the movie were to start over, you have that team monitoring stuff, and there's an event, but they don't see it. They can't see it. All they see is a lightning storm. Yeah. You get like heat lightning and stuff. Like you don't know if anything's out there. And as they're going out there, it's kind of like a dust storm or something like that, and then they hit them. You don't get crazy rainbow shit. You don't think it's something else. It's just like there's a dust storm, and you maybe hit a homeless person or a drifter out in the middle of the desert.
Also,
and from there you go into like the mystery of it, and like maybe he can do things that are a little like different. Like why the fuck is he so jacked? Like why does he speak that way? But also like why does he think he sees stuff that's not there? And it could be Loki that's messing with him. And you get like a reverse like storytelling like beats where like it's from the point of view of Natalie Portman. And eventually you figure out that this is all real.
And the other thing is that plays way more into Marvel's comfort zone. You can tell going back.
The way the movie played? Or
this version that you're suggesting, because you can tell that the Marvel has never known what to do with Asgard.
Yeah.
Or how to depict it. Or like, they say they're aliens with tech, but they also live like it's fucking Middle Earth. Like, none of it makes any rational, like it's not relatable in any way.
Yeah.
And so by keeping it focused on Earth and doing it like doling out the information, it works much more with what the MCU is good at doing
now.
And even then, you know what I mean? Because they're nailing on Iron Man. We're going to talk about Cap in a minute, but they nail that. And this is just, they can't quite like. And also, I don't know, whatever.
What if he loses his memory? What if he doesn't have a full understanding of like what he can do?
And then we can get a little bit of the classic Donald Blake stuff in there. Mm-hmm. Like maybe he has to walk with a cane. I also wish the hammer once in any of these movies didn't look like a prop. No. Didn't look like I could buy it at Toys R Us.
But I have one from Toys R Us and I'm happy.
And it looks like the hammer in the movie.
That makes me happy.
The Cap shield looks great.
Yeah.
In movie 1 it looks great. Mm-hmm. Cap's first shield, that's not his real bouncy shield, looks great.
Oh, like the
classic whatever.
Like stamp looking one.
How have we not figured it out with Thor's hammer?
Well, it's on now.
Good. Thank God. It never looked real to me. Oh, yeah. And it bums me out because that's a big, like, I wanted to feel something when Hela broke that hammer off, and it's just like, it's the prop's gone.
Yeah. It was cool when it came back. It's always cool when it flies back.
Or trying to keep things positive. The actual scene where he fights the Frost Giants is fun. The scene where he takes out the guards at the shield base is ridiculous, but I am glad that Coulson. Thank God for Clark Gregg in this, because he almost single-handedly saves the movie.
He makes it at least
with his
enjoyable.
presence. Yeah. But when he's like, those guys are super trained, and you made them look like chumps. I was like, I'm glad that somebody said something, because I don't know. Thor's just a jacked guy.
Yeah.
Now he's not Thor. They could have.
But he is a warrior. Like,
Yeah.
he's
So
trained to
I'm
fight.
glad they mentioned it, and also
Yeah.
that weird shoehorned in Hawkeye appearance. Although his
Whoa, that was so stupid.
the
Like,
lines he get are great. When he's like, "I'm almost rooting for this guy."
Yeah.
The lines are great, but it's so weird.
but it's so weird because if you guys watch it, it's like we need a big gun, and Hawkeye from behind, you don't know it's him yet.
Yeah.
He reaches for a gun, basically grabs it, and then he grabs a bow and arrow, so he disobeyed the order. And then like
Yeah.
it's like okay, it's so some fucking superhero, some shit. And like even when he's up there with the bow and arrow, I'm like, so I mean he must be really good with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But I don't care.
Yeah, and also if you didn't read the comics,
I didn't know who that was. That meant nothing to me.
because he only shows it was clearly shot later. He doesn't interact with anybody else except through intercom.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't matter to the movie at all later.
Nope.
So it's like, if you don't have any context for this person, how are you supposed to interpret what you just saw?
It's that he is probably going to be important later.
Which he was.
That's all. If that's all they wanted, that's all you got.
Yeah.
But and also CGI at times does really not hold up.
No.
But
Destroyer armor looked pretty cool.
Which one?
Destroyer armor.
The Destroyer.
The Destroyer
yeah.
armor looks pretty cool.
But when like Thor loses his armor, that looks really bad. That
Yeah.
looks really really bad. What does look really cool is the world tree or like the cosmos.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. The reveal of Asgard when they do like the flip and you see like the
Yeah.
full image, and then I saw a painting of Asgard from like Norse mythology, and I'm like, oh, that actually is exactly what it like looks like, that golden city.
Cool.
But also the flip of it, the where like the way it's built up,
Yeah.
it looks similar. So I think that's pretty cool. But overall, if we were like rated out of 18, unless you want to say more, like I mean,
No, you brought it up earlier. It's funny. Part of my frustration for this movie, it shocked me that we ever got a Thor 2 with only with the knowledge that Incredible Hulk basically killed the Hulk franchise. That somehow Thor, which in my opinion was way worse than Incredible Hulk, they was able to keep going. I think it's a testament to how much everybody loved Iron Man and was excited for the idea of Avengers. But also, I think it says a lot that the way we talk about these movies and the way we think about interconnected franchises is it owes so much to the MCU and Iron Man that I think it explains why it's been so hard for other interconnected franchises, specifically Dark Universe couldn't even get going, but also the DCEU, because MCU is so dominated the way we perceive these and created the industry of people talking about this stuff, to where if you were to release something like Thor now, separate from the MCU, or the Incredible Hulk now, if you release the Incredible Hulk now, separated from the MCU, I think it would get unjustly labeled as the worst movie of the year or something like that. Like, this is the worst movie of the year, and it's like, no, it's fine.
It's
like,
fine.
But we've built an industry around tearing stuff apart, and because the MCU is basically responsible for that industry existing, it kind of gets a pass.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like, it makes sense.
Also, thank you for that, because then it's our job. Yep. Just make sure you guys know we're aware of that.
We're aware of that. You know? and also, thank God for it, because not only do we have the MCU, but we do have what we have of the DCU, and we have the CW shows that we love.
Yeah.
So God bless the
People get
MCU.
challenged.
Yeah.
And that's good. But to rate this out of 18.
Oh God, 8? What's like a low?
I mean,
It's low C. I would say a low C for me.
No, I give it. Low C.
High D.
10.
Okay.
10 or 9.
I'm gonna stick with 8.
There you go.
That feels good.
I think I liked it a little bit more than you, but yeah, it's still very, very rough. Oh, Idris Elba's great. Just put that out there.
With his nothing role.
Yeah, but the next movie I'm very excited to talk
Also,
about.
Sif, the actress who played Jamie Alexander, she's great.
It also just makes no sense because Valkyrie's come back later, and in that movie, it's a big point of like
That she's a woman and a word.
You know, but like it's like, isn't Thor great because he proved that women can also fight? And it's like, well, I'm glad this never came back ever again. Yeah, I'm glad we stopped talking about this. But the next movie I want to talk about is a lot better on the rewatch. I'm happy to say, Captain America: First Avenger. This movie books. It tells a lot of story. It's not my favorite Cap movie because in Winter Soldier, you had to live with the characters. Everybody gets a really good arc. Even Cap, he gets to go all over the place, and in Civil War as well, he gets to do a lot.
Interesting point. I think it's interesting to point out that it's the same writers, and I
crazy
for all three of them, and
Yeah.
I think that's why these movies overall have worked so well. Like I remember people posted like, who has the better trilogy, and Cap's in there. I'm like, Cap one's fine. Rewatching it's like, no, most of this movie really works.
It does, and you pointed out that you didn't buy the CGI, or you didn't like the CGI for Steve, but it's weird
for Tiny Steve when he's small.
No.
For me, watching it, like there's parts where like the side, like he'll turn and like the side of his face vanishes or his chin's not there. Is the bottom of his face just goes into his neck, and it's like, what's happening?
What did you watch it on?
A TV.
I know, but but did you pirate it? Like
no,
because I watched it and I was like, I'm
in
still
4K HD.
Yeah, because I rented it. It was $50. It was great. I got the real film reel.
Yeah.
But watching it, I was like, I'm super impressed by this because so much work went into this. It wasn't like Snapchat filter of Steve's face. I'm simplifying it because I don't know how CG work goes into all that. But
you don't know what CG is.
I don't actually know what those
letters
stand
for.
Yeah. But there actually were there's 4 layers to building that character.
One tiny Steve.
That tiny Steve, because it was all acted by Chris Evans,
and
it wasn't him shaved down. There was another person built into that acted all those roles or stood in. But at the same time, it was that's a very complicated and thoughtful way to make that character, because you could have done there's a bunch of different ways you could have done it. I think for the most part, he looks it looks really good, especially if you watch the outdoor clips. When he dives on the grenade, there's nothing.
Love that scene.
It's a great scene, and there's a lot of great character moments. But if you watch it, it looks like he's doing it. It doesn't look like
you're right there.
Yeah,
you're right there. And I noticed it more when he went in to go in the very early scenes leading up to when he goes to meet Erskine for the first time. I will say the scene where he gets the flag off the pole, where he outsmarts everybody.
It's a great scene.
And specifically when the grenade scene is one of those silly moments, like when Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is surrounded by the bats, and when I get weirdly emotional with the grenade scene because it's just such a great this is who this person is.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool, I think it might be one of my favorite moments in any MCU movie ever.
And also, it was very cool when they explained that the serum. That's why I wish this came out before Hulk, because it would have made Hulk actually mean more.
Yeah.
That the serum brings out parts of it exaggerates parts of people's personality. So it's if you're good, you're righteous, you're godly. That's why Cap is the person you can get behind and the person you trust. If you can't trust Captain America, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, and why Red Skull, which by the way, Red Skull he's not, personality-wise, he's not going to win any villain awards.
Yeah.
He's pretty straightforward villain. The design is amazing for Red Skull. But because something they never mentioned with that. I love and honestly, I think it kind of works because the way chemicals in your brain transfer information, you could make a reasonable explanation that those chemicals interact with the chemicals in your body and generate the appearance of this magical serum.
Yeah.
But if it makes Cap godly and it makes Red Skull look like Red Skull, it makes sense that a version of it would bring out all the deep-seated anger issues in Bruce Banner that create the Hulk, and I find that really fascinating.
And I like that also, that aspect when it came to the Ultimates, because he's so insecure and he's really a mousy little. Sorry, I'm gonna call him a pissant.
Yeah.
He's mainly because when he does become the Hulk, he becomes in the comics he becomes a rapey monster.
Yeah,
it's
Bruce,
really not. It's not great.
I'm not a huge Bruce Banner Hulk fan in the Ultimates. I don't really like that depiction.
Me neither.
MCU movies, he's great.
Yeah, he's great, but I do like that idea that it brought out. It amplified those insecure feelings.
Yeah.
So, and if it did tie in with the Ang Lee Hulk with the abusive father, that makes sense. That's a very cool way of exploring who the Hulk is and why he is like that.
Yeah.
And so I like that, and also you get a Hulk-like image when whenever Hulk transforms or when he gets the serum or whatever, his eyes open up and they're green. In this, you get Chris Evans' eyes popping open and they're still blue and they're still normal right before he gets the uber mega jacked body.
I love, one of my other favorite bits is when Haley Atwell as Agent Carter, he comes out, she's a little oh my, because everybody in the audience is oh jeez, man, which shows that even though I think the CGI is pretty bad for Tiny Steve, it works because when that happens, you're this movie does
a great job of looking, because also he's not as jacked as he is in other movies. He gets huge in Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
But in this, when he's running around and tripping and he falls through a bit, he
falls through a window, through a display window.
Yeah, and that's great.
It reminded me a lot of watching Sam Raimi's Spider-Man for the first time, because it really captures that sense of wish fulfillment. What if you were a nerdy dweeb and suddenly something happened and you're fucking Superman. You are the pinnacle of human perfection. So when he's learning his abilities for the first time and he's jumping from cars and stuff like this, if I'd seen this when I was a kid, I would have been all about this fucking movie. It's so cool.
If it was a modern day film, it may have maybe resonated better, but I like the 40s aesthetic to this. I think it's also very it makes sense for the storytelling they were gonna do.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of ballsy. It's like to do a period piece like this.
And it frustrated me as a fan because it's like Cap is now more known for being a man out of time. So it was like we're gonna spend a whole movie in World War II, and now in hindsight, it's like no. Thank goodness they did that.
Yeah.
That was such a because if nothing else, this movie actually at a certain point starts moving too fast through certain events. But I don't want to breeze past Erskine. Stanley Tucci as Erskine.
Stanley Tucci is one of my favorite like lesser known actors. If Devil Wears Prada, have you ever seen it?
No.
Really, it's some of the best performances and best writing in a movie. I know it's fashion, but it's like it does a great job of grabbing all like that little like snide comments you get from people about your. Like if someone will say something about your look or like they'll like insult you like kind of like a bully at school where it's like this is a compliment but really it's underhanded and like he nails that kind of character, but at the same time he's very encouraging. But he also will say things that's like, oh really, you're gonna wear that, and you're just like feel that
plays a lot in. He was also in Feud as one of the Warner Brothers as the head of the studio. And he's the worst, but for some reason you still find him kind of magnetic.
That's
even
the
though
best part.
He's the worst in that. But in this, he's just a very positive. It's so funny because we spent a lot of time establishing Cap's relationship with Bucky, and I was much more emotionally hurt by the death of Erskine than I was Bucky. Like I felt that relationship so much more, and I think it's because of Stanley Tucci. Like he does such a good job of like when he's explaining to Tommy Lee Jones, who's also great, why Steve Rogers is the guy. When he has that sit down where he explains why the serum brings out what it brings out in people. And then he's like, "Oh, you can't drink. You have a test tomorrow." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He goes to pour back in the bottle. He's like, "I don't have a test. I can drink." And so you know what I mean, like,
which is a bummer because from then on he doesn't get to drink. Like he doesn't do the same. That was the last chance he had to actually drink and have some like effect on him. But by the way, that's a big plot hole because if his metabolism is 4 times as fast, he should be eating constantly.
Yeah.
He should be eating a shit ton. But his and then when he becomes a prop for the war, because comics used to sell war bonds back in the 40s, and I think that's a very fun like
and they get the classic him slugging Hitler thing with
and the comic.
My only issue with that is because once he becomes Cap, we breeze through like a montage of like 5 missions, and it's like, especially since he's supposed to be so iconic, which we get the USO shows allow him. That's what makes him like a household name. And it works, and again, it allows my favorite thing where we get the classic versions of the costumes.
And he becomes a character in the world that is equally as inspiring as like a comic book character in our world.
Maybe the time could have been used to establish more of his relationship with Bucky and some of that other stuff that I wish we hadn't breezed through his wartime stuff. You know what I mean? In the later half of the movie, I will say he uses that USO costume when he goes to save Bucky's unit. And he combines it with like a bomber jacket and stuff. It's like, oh, that should have just been his costume for this movie. Because when he gets the actual Cap costume, it's kind of junk.
Yeah, you didn't like it too much. I did like I like that they introduced the shield, and there was this kind of dumb side plot with Natalie Dormer. She shows up for a second and kisses him, and then nothing happens from that at all. But I do need to say, Haley Atwell's amazing through and through this entire film. And boy, am I still in love with her.
Yeah, man. We made me want to go back and rewatch
Agent Carter. Because she's great in that.
She's so good.
And
she's
Howard
so
Stark, like both of he's not as great as I remember. Like in my memory, he got like heightened a lot.
Yeah.
But he is still very good.
And I like it. That's one of those things that felt like, okay, cool, you're tying it in, but the way that Cap's relationship with Howard Stark pays off in later movies is amazing, and it made me a lot more like, and also having him be a part of Agent Carter, it's like, no, I'm glad he was included. I think this is great. The only things, again, it kind of speeds through his missions. I think his actual Captain America costume, that one is trash. I don't think it looks good. Love what we got of the Howling Commandos with Neil McDonough.
They tried their best. Yeah. And since they're not like a main part of like Cap back then, I think maybe it's been retconned and now they are. But like, because I've just read through what the original comics were, and it was just him and Bucky.
Yes.
Bucky's death is a little bit kind of like thrown in there too. Which
also, how the fuck was he supposed to have survived that?
He dropped like
he just falls
1,000 feet.
He should be
super dead. Didn't lose an arm. His back just shattered.
Yeah, he should be mush. Like by the time he gets down to wherever.
He didn't fall onto like snow.
Yeah,
he fell onto rocks and ice.
I think it's supposed to be implied that Zola, Arnim Zola,
he's great too.
Yeah, he's great. he was experimenting on him, so maybe he'd already started the process that would eventually lead him to being Winter Soldier. So maybe that's how he survived.
He experimented on him before that.
Yeah, remember that's what he saves him from the thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's smart. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense.
I also like, in hindsight, I really like tying in Red Skull's obsession with the occult and gods with the Norse stuff. I think that's a really cool. It's a simple way of tying in the universe.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. And I did like that the Nazis were getting upset with him. It's like, you did an off the books invasion of Norway for some reason. Like, no, we're shutting you down. That's easy. And the Valkyrie ship is very cool. A lot of the vehicles they had in there, like not Red Skull's car, which is actually like they took the basis of like an 18-foot like truck, like a semi truck, and they put that on top of it. So that's an actual. It does drive. Like that thing's a real thing.
Even though it's a Nazi car, it's a cool car.
It is, and also fun little nod to Men in Black. They added that booster button on the gear chip, on the gear shaft, and the button it has German on it. It says "Do not press," but it's like the same button that was
from
on
Men in Black. Yeah.
I didn't put that letter part in my breakdown. I did because I was like I couldn't translate enough because it was such a quick shot.
Yeah.
But eventually later I found like a breakdown. I was like, yeah, no, that's what they did. They did that on purpose for Tommy Lee Jones when he drove the car.
That's great.
But all the other vehicles, not the Valkyrie, but all like the weird propeller cars and like the sub that the guy tried to use to escape after killing Erskine.
Yeah.
Those are actual like Nazi concepts for vehicles, and then they took them and created them in the movie.
That's great. I love when he dives in after the sub to get him. It was also when he gets into the final fight to fight Red Skull, and he sees all the bombs with the Brooklyn on it. I was like, what? But then you see that people are actually supposed to pilot it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I guess that helps when you're trying to ruch. Which plane am I going into? I get in that plane. Which, by the way, that action sequence is great when he's fighting and he's like, he throws one out.
I forgot. In my notes when I was doing like the review, I wrote down a blender, and I was like, why? I wrote will it blend, and I was like, why did I write that? And I was like, oh yeah, he kicked that guy into and just.
Yeah. Oh, that's shockingly violent for these movies, especially when they go like, because they're using the Cosmic Cube to make weapons, it becomes kind of like G.I. Joe where nobody's using real guns, and then you see that and you're like, oh shit.
There's also a really dumb moment where they're like, he's gonna charge the base, and you get like the cool shield on the motorcycle and people are shooting at him wildly, and they're trying to get him to like kill him or whatever, and then people with flamethrowers show up and they don't shoot him, they like box him in. And then they take him to Red Skull. So I'm like, wait, why was everyone firing at like his head and his face and his everything and trying to kill him? If they were just gonna
cool, Sam.
I know
that's cool.
That was just a dumb movie moment where I'm like, oh, this is kind of stupid.
I'm also really glad they embraced the shield being able to bounce off stuff and hit people, and like really made it like, no, this is the Cap from the comics, man.
Yeah,
like
it was insane.
Yeah,
that shield makes no, and I love,
no, it doesn't make any sense.
And they have to, and I like that Spider-Man calls it out.
Yeah,
it's worth being called out.
It's vibranium. It gets to do whatever you want. It's magic space metal.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
We learned that now. Yeah. It's magic space metal.
And Red Skull gets sucked into the Cosmic Cube, so he could come back at some point.
Which it was cool. That was the same Cosmos from Asgard, so he could be just sitting on whatever the hell thing.
Red Skull is one of my favorite. I think one of the best MCU Marvel villains, Marvel comic villains. So I wouldn't be. You could even with that makeup, you could bring him back and it could be a different actor. You know what I mean? If he doesn't want to, I will say his accent starts sounding Irish at a certain point.
Yep, he does. I think that's when he's kind of getting done with putting on the makeup.
Yeah.
I did like the little flap they had right there on the side where it's like, no, there's something under there, and you don't want to see it.
Yeah.
But if I were to rate this, I think this movie deserves more recognition because it's a solid movie. It's very well written, well acted across the board. Yep. A lot of funny Easter eggs and nods, and also Tommy Lee Jones actually does act in this, which is surprising. Like he seems so crotchety and old and angry that he wouldn't want to even do anything, but he actually looks like he's having a good time in this.
Yeah.
And Haley Atwell.
Yeah. Huh?
Yes, and
I would give this an A-.
I give it an A- as well. So out of 18, classic score, like a 15.75 or like a 16.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's fair. Now I think we're going to get into the big boy. This was such a fucking blast to watch. We did this watch through with you guys. Let's talk about the Avengers. There they all are. Audio people, you're very welcome. Check it out. Look at your headphones. It's right there.
Again, this is another movie that I rewatched fairly recently before we did this. And
it books.
It really does. It moves really well. It really takes advantage of the fact that all these characters have already been introduced. However, I do think you could watch this movie cold and still be able to appreciate everything that's happening.
There is some fun nods, like when Hydra's brought up, so you understand like this is important.
Cap is the hardest one. Cap would be the hardest this was your first MCU movie. I think Cap would be the what's happening with this guy?
You do get a sum up of him,
yeah,
because everybody else gets a pretty good like explanation of who they are. Like Iron Man, you're like, oh, he's got the suit,
yeah,
and he's rich. Hulk is Hulk, and like you get that. And Thor, his brother is the one invading, so you get enough Asgardian stuff to learn about that. Like he's the god. Man,
yeah,
this is bad. Nick Fury, you get it. It's evil. It's not evil or CIA, but with
Spy,
superheroes. Yeah. Cap's pretty tough. Even though that he does actually get like a sum up of his origin in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
like,
he's the only one that gets it. Like, oh, hey, who this is?
Yeah, even Mark Ruffalo, who like gets a scene talking about himself.
Yeah,
you're just like, oh yeah, he's Bruce Banner. We don't see the Hulk though until like the hour and 30 mark.
Yeah,
but there's a lot. This movie was shot to be like 3-4 hours. Like they had that much like when they did the first cut of it.
Oh wow.
And then they like, I think it's like 3 hours more, but like plus some. But then they narrowed it back, which people were like. I remember like when they talk about Batman v Superman or whatever, they're like, the first cut's 3 hours, and other people's reaction were like, yay, or other people were like, boo, that's too long. Like, why would you shoot a movie that long? It's like, well, most movies are they're shot longer, and then they edit them down.
That's what editing is.
Yeah, that's how you make a movie.
Yeah,
you just make the scenes tighter so that they play better. You don't have all the dead air that happens when you sometimes shoot in a movie. Anyways, but it looks like with some of the scenes they had to cut out and to make this movie work better, they left in everything you need, all the quips and everything. But it like never stops for a second. You do get some very heartfelt moments, like when Cap and after Coulson's killed and Cap and Tony talk.
Yeah.
Hiccup, burp, everything happened. And he says like he makes that point that we're not soldiers.
Yeah.
And that's worth pointing out because he's not. He's the rich guy who made the suit of armor, and that's why he does what he does. And like he does have a moral mission to do this, but at the same time he's like, I'm not a soldier.
Yeah.
And now people are dying, that I care about. So that. He already lost he lost the guy he lost Jensen in the cave.
Yeah.
And this guy was closer to like a friend, and I get it. And I do like that scene. I do like everything they do. I think you said this, but I totally agree that Hulk is the best in this movie. Yeah, it's because it's coming out party from Mark Ruffalo, and he's just cool. Like they almost position Hulk. I've never cared about the idea of Hulk being a part of the Avengers. It never meant anything to me. Mm. But the way this movie positions him it's almost like he's in the Wolverine role. Like he's almost like the cool, like I don't know, it's a really great, but not just him. This movie does an amazing job of cutting straight to the core of what makes each of these characters cool. Like each of their little introductions, like you start with Shield, which I think is smart because you're not going to care with the second any superhero is introduced, you're not going to care about those guys. So they start with Nick Fury, Coulson, and Hawkeye, and Maria Hill. Yeah,
and Maria Hill. And then we build from Black Widow, which her introduction is great, to her interaction with now revealing Mark Ruffalo's version of Bruce Banner, which that sequence is amazing.
It's very good.
Their interplay. And then is that when you get Cap, and then you get Iron Man.
Captain Iron Man, yeah.
And each
then
one
Thor later.
Yeah, and each one you cut right to like this is why who this character is. This is why they matter. This is who their personality is. So that when they and then it gets to the fun of like just bouncing them off each other, which is where the bread and butter of these movies comes in.
Now there are some dumb things, but they're so entertaining that you just accept it. Like Thor and Iron Man fighting. That makes no sense like at all. Like he's like, don't take my stuff. And so
why are they fighting? Like
when Iron Man comes down to go retrieve Loki, instead of grabbing Loki and flying away,
he punches Iron Man. He grabs Thor. He grabs
and throws him. And it's like you could have just grabbed Loki
and run.
Yeah. Because Thor has literally no way of tracking you.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, he did get to the plane, so maybe.
Well, he got dropped off there, so like from Asgard, he just got like. Boop.
Here's what I agree with you. However, you could make the argument that like he's like I need to, if I just grab Loki, this guy can clearly fly. He'll follow me, so I need to take him out first. Then I'll get Loki. Mm. Whatever. It's a cool fight. Again, classic heroes. It's so funny that the Avengers spend way more time fighting each other than they ever do fighting whatever bad guy they're fighting. Because we get the fight with Thor versus Iron Man, which I love the little bits of where Thor, again, I don't know how this works, but Thor lightnings him and it charges up the suit, which is fun.
It was just a fun moment. It's like, if you think about it, you're like, that's not how batteries work.
Yeah, but whatever. It's a fun moment. And then Cap comes in and then you get the Thor on the hammer. And then you get the big fight on the jet where Black Widow has to take on... Black Widow and Thor fight Hulk, and then Black Widow fights Hawkeye. And that I think my favorite sequence in the movie is when they're on the helicarrier, which, by the way, thank you for including helicarriers. Helicarriers are such a cool... Again, something uniquely Marvel that only really Marvel does. And so I'm glad and very Shield, and I'm glad that they included it in the movie. I like the way they included it in the movie.
They actually, as a person who did not know anything about Shield besides like it being in Marvel and then being like a spy agency, seeing that happen in the movie when I was a kid, like it's 2011, so I was like 17, 18, something like that. But like me not knowing anything and just seeing that for the first time was so mind blowing. We're like, why does it fly?
Yeah, like, helicarriers are so cool in the comics. I've always thought they were so cool. So I'm glad they include them. And the sequence where Hawkeye attacks the helicarrier and they're all dealing with all that.
It makes him the most badass in any of the movies. Even though like I enjoy him in Age of Ultron. Not as Farm. I enjoy him though because he's got some great jokes and he actually has some personality. In this, it's really fun because you're like, he's not being controlled by anybody. This is basically if you made him do something and he's fully willing to do it. He took down a helicarrier with an arrow. And then he hacked all the computers with an arrow. And it was just like, it's awesome. And you get all the coolest trick arrows. Like, and they do it in the coolest way where like the arrows like screw themselves on and he can personalize each one. That's pretty cool.
It's rad.
And Black Widow she's awesome in Winter Soldier. And she's got some great moments in Civil War as well. But she is one of my, like, probably my second favorite part of this movie. Is like anytime she's talking with Bruce, like especially when he's about to transform after he gets like hit by the missile or whatever, and like she's trying to like talk him down, like and like get him to understand, and when she like helps deprogram Hawkeye, a lot of good moments, a lot of good character moments. Thor does the least in this, but he's very enjoyable.
No, I don't think there's a missed beat in this movie. I think every character is at that moment in time is the best version of themselves. I kind of like what they've done with Thor now and Ragnarok, but at that time, I think this is the best version of these characters. And again, the joy of, and this is why you hire Joss Whedon for this, because the people love his shows by seeing these iconic characters he made bounce off each other. And so he didn't have to make the characters, but having them bounce off of one another and have the different personalities rub up against each other in the wrong way. Like it all works, it all clicks, it all makes you like each of the Avengers and root for them as a team. Because growing up as a kid, like I liked Marvel Comics, but more X-Men, Spider-Man. Like I didn't pick up an Avengers book until Spider-Man and Wolverine joined the team. You know what I mean? So I've never been the hugest Iron Man, Cap, Thor fan, but this really makes you invested in them, and it all builds to that really cool battle in New York, and especially that one tracking shot where they're all doing badass things.
That scene still makes everyone freak out when we're watching it, especially by everyone I mean when I rewatched it to do a breakdown. I was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Also, Thor and Hulk's fight in the helicarrier is awesome. You get the scene where he yanks the hammer through all the walls, and when you like later when you thought about it, you're like, oh my god, he's killing so many people, or like it's just. This thing will go down just because he's doing this, but it's still awesome. And Hulk trying to lift it as well.
I also really like when Cap and Iron Man are trying to restart the engine, and so Cap's trying to take on soldiers, while Cap's he's trying to take on enemy combatants, while Iron Man's trying to restart the turbine. And Iron Man's like, "Oh, you need to look at the control panel. What do you see?" And he's like, "It looks like it's powered by some form of electricity."
It's such a good joke. And the joke when he like they in an interview, Chris Evans was worried when they were making this film that Cap's gonna look like an idiot the whole time because he's not gonna get the references, and he's like, no, it's endearing because, but during your point in time, you weren't like in the 40s, you weren't obsessed with movies because they didn't exist. Like now that everyone's obsessed with references, like you would be on the out of most of what like people say. But him like genuinely getting excited that he understood one reference because of the biggest movie of the time. Like that's great. Like that's such a sweet moment.
And it is really endearing. And I think they've done a really smart job about like how do you make the Boy Scout likable. One, you make him a complete and utter badass in combat. Like Cap, I think going back and watching the first Captain America, the First Avenger, it's like, oh yeah, because even in this movie, when it's not the Russos yet, like he still has the best action sequences. You know what I mean? Cool. And so in this movie, like he's just he's such a badass that it's like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he cops the cops and like, I need you to do this, and I'm like, why should we listen to you? And then aliens come down and he kicks their ass, and they're like, okay, we're gonna do what you say.
The final fight is pretty awesome. Don't know why all the aliens have to die when you nuke the ship, but it's a great sacrifice for Iron Man. Black Widow gets some awesome moments in this where she's just using her wits and her know-how to just like get shit done. She gets shit done in this movie constantly. She like, we need Hawkeye to be functional. Okay, we'll get that done. And but she does. We're gonna interrogate Loki and get him to basically spill his whole plan. We can do that. Also, watching when I was younger, I was like, oh wait, why does Loki like know about Banner? It's like, oh, because he has Selvig and he has Hawkeye, and they can tell them
and
everything.
Also, he probably was told stuff by Thanos' guy, which, by the way, we get our first reveal of Thanos, as you were talking about end tags where people are like, wait, what's happening?
In Cap, you get a Gatling gun. Wait, do you get one in there? I think you get one. I don't remember. Yeah. You do get Haley Atwell shooting a gun in the middle of a crowded New York street to try to take out Hydra, but you're like, there's still people everywhere.
Yeah.
But in Avengers, you get a couple Gatling gun shots going off into nothingness, and it's just like, stop doing that.
Yes. When they try to get Loki in Germany, and they do the Gatling gun at him, and it's
they almost fire it, and it's like, please God, don't do that. Don't do it again. Yeah. Gatling guns are cool, but you pointed this out when we watched. He's like, well, Gatling guns are known for their accuracy. That's why they're made. They want to shoot one bullet in the same place over and over again. No.
But yeah, looking at the Phase 1 overall, you can see why, for the most part, why this thing. It's funny. You can see why it worked then, and you can also see why it's been so hard since then for other companies to make it work for them.
Yeah. It helped that in an interview, Joss Whedon said we don't need to have them have their own individual movies, but it helped bringing supporting characters over to kind of flush out the rest of the story, not only introduce them. You already know if you already know who the supporting characters are, it's easier for the viewer, and you can kind of get through the rest of the story that you actually want to tell. And and you mentioned this a little earlier, but this is the only time we actually get evil Loki. And this movie makes it harder for us to forgive him and other stuff.
Because he's responsible for the murder of. I mean, you could, I guess, lay the blame on Thanos technically because he's manipulating Loki, but it's a stretch.
Yeah, not really.
I've always been creatively. I don't think you always need. I think you could have started off with a Justice League movie and spun the characters out from there. But I think from a marketing perspective, you know how people got so hyped in Game of Thrones about these characters finally meeting over time. You build that anticipation and then you pay it off. And so I think from a creative perspective, you don't need to start with each of them having an individual movie. But from a marketing perspective, it clearly works.
Yeah.
As a thing, it clearly worked here, and it definitely saved a lot of the legwork. Even though some of the standalone movies
are amazing,
or can be clunkier. You know what I mean? But again, the only real one that I would throw out is Thor. Everything else works pretty well.
I think it'd be fun to do a what if episode on like how you could do beat by beat, how you do change those movies.
Yeah, all the Thor movies.
Just not Ragnarok. We can leave Ragnarok because we did that.
No, we already did. Yeah, we already did that one.
1 and 2. That could be a fun one. But also, fun fact, it was rated R for a while.
What was?
Avengers.
What?
Because of the Coulson death.
But it's still pretty graphic in the movie.
They cut it pretty quick though. They show it for. They can only show it for like a certain amount of time. It's like the weird rules like that. And also, it's supposed to like go through his chest.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be showing how vicious Loki is at this point.
Yeah.
And I like that they do like a psychological breakdown of who Loki is, and they do it in the scene with Iron Man and Cap when they're talking about it. He's like, no, he's a diva. Like he's only doing these things because he wants he wants the biggest stage. He's like, and that's one of the best reveals. He's like, he wants a monument with his name plastered, and he's like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, and he realizes his tower. That's a great moment. Again, the characterization in this movie is spot on completely, and it's got a lot of great action. It feels like a miracle what they pulled off, that they were actually able to pull off this big and I'm back to being worried about it for Infinity War, that they've built up this amount of anticipation for this one movie to work, and what if it doesn't work? You know what I mean?
I think it's gonna be. I'm gonna go in it with my even expectations because that's what you got to do with these kind of movies. Come on, guys, we've all learned now. It's like if you're gonna, you got to go in even. You got to go in right in the middle. Like remember Wonder Woman? We were all so scared when we saw it. It was like, oh wait, it was actually beautiful. It was a wonderful movie. Justice League, we went in the middle of the road for most of us, and we got a fine movie. Yeah, we got a fine movie. It was fine. And some of it was a blast. Some of it was, I don't even know what the fuck happened in that. Like, clearly editing couldn't save that part, but whatever. Yeah. My point is, I think Avengers Infinity War is going to be, at the very least, fun. Yeah. And I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited to watch Phase 2 Marvel. We're going to be doing, I think we're going to do live streams for, like, I have to look at the schedule for
we'll
March.
figure it out. Yeah.
Probably Guardians of the Galaxy will be like the big one because it was like the first cosmic story.
It feels like where they really changed what they were doing.
And I love that film. I've rewatched it and it's still like a blast for me. And when I watched it the first time, I remember I went like I was like I leaned up on my knees and I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking cool. Like it was when what's his name, Ronan's ship was coming into the atmosphere. And I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. So I'm excited to relive that, and I'm excited to know your opinion on that when we get to that. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Let's give a quick review, a score of Avengers. A. At 18, 17? Yeah, I think I'd do that. It's because it's fucking great. But let us know your scores for all these movies, and let us know if you've been rewatching them as well, if anything has changed, if your opinions have changed. Hit us up on Twitter at DJ Talks Trash.
Hit him up at Sam Basher. Go to onlystupidanswers.com for all of our content. Also, we'll have links to our merch. And by the way, if you're like, hey, I love Super TV Showdown, hey, I want that shirt. Well, guess what? This is Patreon exclusive. So if you want this shirt, contribute to our $25 tier. Not only will you get everything else in our Patreon before then, so you'll get the video versions of this early, streaming early. You'll get bonus audio episodes. You'll get Super TV Showdown. You'll get monthly Skype chats with us.
And movie nights.
And every other month you will get a piece of merch. And in situations like this, it will be exclusive. That will be the only way that you can get that merch.
Bi-monthly.
Yeah.
Or once every 2 months.
Yes.
Make that clear.
Yeah.
Because why would bi-monthly have to mean two different things?
Yeah.
There's a lot happening outside of this.
I'm sorry.
studio.
Well, we're going to wrap it up right now.
Yeah, onlystupidanswers.com. Go check that out. Patreon, new stuff's coming up. Emerald City Comic Con, we will be there. Hope to see you there in Seattle. We're going to be doing an event at the Outsiders.
Oh, wow. I think, Outsider Comics and Geek Boutique.
There we go. We're going to be doing an event there, 5 p.m., February 28th. That's a Wednesday, but then the rest of the time we'll see you on the floor of Emerald City Comic Con. Keep an eye out on our social media for more info, because we're always trying to... With this past couple of weeks, we've been launching a bunch of new stuff, and we have a bunch of new ideas, so we hope you enjoy it. We can't thank you enough for all your continued support, and let's try to see if we can... Let's do something big for Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah.
If you guys have suggestions, please hit us up. We'd appreciate it. DJ, any final thoughts?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Check it out. There it goes.